Orchard Human Services presents Coronavirus: Surviving, Thriving with Dr. Darlene Claire Wodzinski. Episode 1: Crisis Money Management. An interview with Mr. Rodney Hill of Thrivent Financial. Well, good afternoon. Hello, Mr. Hill.
Hello, Darlene. How are you today?
I'm doing good. So as you know, I'm Dr. Darlene Claire Wodzinski with Orchard Human Services, and I was lucky enough to be introduced to you, Mr. Rodney Hill, with Thrivent Financial a few months ago. And in the short time I've known you, you have been an incredible supporter of our nonprofit and issues that support children with special needs. And I want to thank you.
Thank you. It's been awesome.
Today you're reaching out again. One of the things that is happening with our clients and our families is that they're facing incredible financial strain in the face of the coronavirus pandemic. And I thought, what an incredible thing for me to get to talk with you a little bit, to get your take and share some valuable information with our clients so they have some good strategies to use to stay afloat in the weeks and months to come.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you're a really smart guy. And I know you work in a really beautiful office in Alpharetta, right? Isn't that beautiful office is in Alpharetta?
Yes.
So you have an MBA, and if I remember correctly, you got that back in the 90s. So you have worked for many, many years in financial services.
Correct. Yeah, a little history. So yeah, MBA from University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I have been in the corporate world until about 2018 early. And so then I chose to go from corporate America finances into personal finances with Thrivent in 2018. I've been doing that for about 2 years.
And the one thing I really liked about Thrivent, in the way you introduced me to it, is that it's a company that really has a heart for their client. It has a heart for making the world a better place, for giving back to charitable organizations, and helping families get stable.
Yes, Thrivent is a not-for-profit financial services organization that's been around for over 100 years. And our roots were based in 1902 and forward. For the first 100 years, we're all around the Lutheran Brotherhood and Aid Association for Lutherans. But those denominations and membership said that this is just a great offering we have. Let's just open it up, and we offer it to all Christian denominations since 2012.
Great. So with your background, both in corporate finance and personal finance, I was hoping to tap your wisdom and get some good recommendations for folks. One of the things that they're really facing is looking at potentially going into massive debt because their income is being interrupted. In some cases, they can't work. In other cases, they shouldn't work. I know people who have really dangerous jobs where they're in contact with the public and healthcare, but there's no protective gear, no PPE. What do you have to say to folks who are concerned about whether they're going to be racking up massive debt just to survive in the next few weeks and months?
Yeah, that's a great question. How to manage debt during a pandemic is really the question at hand here. So there's a few talking points that I'd like to address. I mean, it's never ideal to build up debt, but in these times and days, it might be necessary. You know, with this coronavirus outbreak, it's really disrupted our economy very, very much so. Businesses have struggled. Workers have been laid off. We've been seeing numbers from the Department of Labor as high as 10 million that have either been laid off or furloughed in the last 2 weeks time frame.
Right.
It's a tough spot, and you may find yourself having to accumulate debt because you just don't have any other means or options available to you. So don't beat yourself over it. That's the first thing. You're not going to be the only one that's in this situation, so you're not going to be alone. A recent survey that I ran through basically had about 59% of credit card holders that had entered the coronavirus pandemic with credit card debt, and most of them have been carrying that debt for at least a year. With that being said, let's try to just manage bills the best that we can so that you can recover once the pandemic is over. Let's look at wise money management principles, and that's what we teach at Thrivent and our affiliate Ronald Blue Trust Company. Is those wise money management principles allow our members to basically live a life in excess, as well as the ability to provide means and resources to other nonprofit organizations. There might be a need to move balances to lower interest rate cards, maybe 0% interest rate cards. Start paying off some of the higher interest rate cards first if you can, and I'll point out a little bit about that below. But now is a great opportunity if you are finding yourself, at home, after you've cleaned up every single room in the house and, purged. There's an opportunity for you to just make a list of where is your current debt, and your mortgage is probably going to be on top of that current debt. And credit cards may be a little bit further down in that debt, but make that list. One of the things that I'll be working on here shortly, and Darlene will help to let everybody know, is a workshop called Your Money Made Simple. One of our chief mission officers from Ron Blue Trust Company, Russ Crossan, has written a book, and that book is highlighted in how to create a plan in basic formats and very easy steps. I'm going to just show you what that plan looks like here.
And while you're doing that, you said two things that I think are really critical. Number one, nobody is in this alone.
Correct.
And the number of people who are facing overwhelming debt and other payments are in the millions. And so nobody has to sit there and feel like they're all alone and that there's nowhere for them to turn.
Correct.
You're here to get us started, and then there are other resources as well. That was number one. And the second thing you mentioned, and this is really smart business, is for people to prioritize. If you need to decide if you're going to pay for groceries and medicine versus paying a credit card bill, you may have to put your personal health and welfare needs first. Make sure you have access to food, water, shelter, medical care. Take care of all those things first, and then come up with a secondary plan for filling in the gaps for debt and other such things. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, very, very good point to elaborate on is that, and I'll touch a little bit on it in a little bit here, but it's take care of yourself first. I mean, as I move down further, I just wanted to show this diagram first. This is part of that workshop that I'll be offering. That's basically talks about creating your plan. Okay. And your plan is basically your income is then distributed out into 5 different buckets. And hopefully bucket number 1, giving, bucket number 2, taxes, bucket number 3, debt, bucket number 4, living expenses, and bucket number 5, savings. By the end of that calculation, we're hopeful that that savings number is positive. And if it's not positive, then we're here to help you in that situation. So that's a great point that you made about prioritization. And I just want to go through the points that I were making about that prioritization. The contact your creditors. If you're having difficulty with paying certain credit cards or your mortgage even, your creditors are out there and they are deferring and reducing payments. So the CARES Act, which is with this coronavirus pandemic, has mandated that all borrowers with government-backed mortgages be allowed to delay payments for up to 12 months.
And Rodney, I can tell you, my clients are doing this and it's happening, because that's just part of our counseling. Parents trying to figure out how to take care of their children, or a married couple or a single individual. They're being challenged to find out enough money to make payments every month. And I suggested, why don't you call your creditors? And several of them have gotten back and said, you cannot believe it. I contacted them, and within 2 days, I had an email where they were suspending my payments until June.
Mm-hmm.
That took so much pressure off their backs. I can't tell you how that changed their perspective. It's not that it fixed anything, Rodney, but to know that they didn't have that drumming pressure beat of you got to pay, where's your payment, you're late. That was suspended for several months. That made a really big difference in their quality of life and their ability to raise their kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, we've seen numbers as high as 1,200% increase in requests to defer payments. And then even last week, numbers as high as nearly 1,900% requesting deferred payments. So that's a great thing.
I wanted to ask about something else, because this is something we did. I have a big family, adult children, and we have lots of cars because everybody drives. What we did is we left 2 cars on the road, and we contacted our insurance company, and we did something called putting our car in storage. So we kept our car registered. It still has insurance on it, but only to be stored on our property, not to be driven. And I'm telling you, we are saving hundreds upon hundreds of dollars every month because we did that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. As far as when you're going through your expenses and prioritizing and putting that budgeting plan together, that's a great resource to look at. The other would be, take your phone and look at what all the subscriptions you have on your phone to different software products that you have, and go through them with a fine-tooth comb, and then actually, do I need these subscriptions? Do I need Netflix? Do I need, streaming TV? All those now in this situation, you got to kind of weigh the wants and the needs separately and make an economic decision on what's best for you and your family.
And that's a really good point. As we went through some of our subscriptions, we noticed something really interesting. Some of them actually had room for other members. So some of our family members canceled services, and we shared subscriptions that we had. So for example, I have YouTube TV. And it allows you to have 5 family members on the plan, but I had not filled those slots. So several family members were able to cancel their cable TV service and just signed on. And so for the same amount of money that I'm spending every month, that across our extended family, we are saving hundreds of dollars just on cable bills, which is so cool.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, and the other thing that I've been told is that, utility companies are not going to shut your utilities off if you haven't made payment. So that's part of the CARES Act as well. So, and that's part of your prioritization as you go through your expenses and what you can pay versus what you need to pay for.
And something comes to mind. You had mentioned something when we had talked earlier that really struck home for me. For people who maybe have always been really good with paying their bills on time. I know I turn myself inside out to try to pay my bills on time. And I'm always looking for that 100% on my credit saying that I got all my bills paid on time. But you said to me, these are unintended consequences. People need to understand that this pandemic wasn't anybody's fault. And so therefore people have to be more gentle with themselves. Can you talk about that unintended consequences a little more, please?
Yeah, so that's a great point. As we look at when we're deferring these payments or we're asking for relief on payments to your particular creditors, you just got to make sure that all the fine print, right? Are there going to be any unintended consequences by doing this? And I know for a fact that at least with your mortgages, at least with your utility bills, there are not going to be any things that are going to hurt your financial history down the road. But you got to make sure with some of the credit cards that may not be backed by large financial institutions, that they're not going to have consequences that will hurt you down the road financially. So that's what I had meant by that comment. So make sure you do your homework, study, make sure you understand the ins and outs and all the fine print, that when you do ask for relief, that you know what's going to be the outcome when you're done.
Good point. So today in this little chat, we've really focused on what people need to do today in the here and now in order to get through the next weeks and months. I would like to ask if we can talk again another time to come up with some strategies for how people are going to get themselves out of this mess once life starts to return to normal.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Would you be okay? I think there's just one thing that I wanted to talk with you about. When people are thinking about how to handle credit card payments that they can't make right now, if creditors are calling or giving them a hard time and interrupting their quality of life, could you explain what the public has to do in order to notify a credit card that I'm not up to receiving these phone calls right now? Please don't call because I'm in a crisis. What does that have to look like?
Yeah, I'm going to suspect at this time that there's not going to be a lot of calls coming from debt collectors pressuring you to make payments. And if you do get a call from a debt collector saying that, you know, your payment, then I would respond, you know, I've been affected by the COVID-19 coronavirus. My impact has not been fully determined at this time, because this might take a bit of time in order for this all to correct itself for some of these folks. And just go back to them and say, I just can't make payment on this time. Can you tell me what available help that you could give me, or what available relief programs may I also just check my website out every now and then at the connect.thrivent.com/Rodney-Hill. And I'm going to be having events that can help folks out. There's no products sold at any of my events. They're just learning events, and there's going to be some great things just heading a carefree environment.
Good. So let's go over this. Mr. Rodney E. Hill, Financial Associate with Thrivent. He's located in Alpharetta at 1125 Sanctuary Parkway, Suite 510. His cell is 404-545-4785, and the direct office line is 404-884-7483. And if you prefer email, you can reach Mr. Hill at rodney.hill@thrivent.com. That's THRIVENT.com. Well, thank you so much. Can we go back to our face-to-face for just a minute so we can say
awesome.
goodbyes?
Yep.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to have the next conversation. We have to talk about juicy things like debt management, debt consolidation, whether a person uses credit counseling or a debt management firm, or whether they come up with another strategy for paying down debt. We have lots of important things to talk about to help people make it out of the current and manage to get through the crisis. Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Thank you. You're welcome, darling.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Orchard Human Services, uplifting lives by counseling, educating, and caring. With Dr. Darlene Claire Wodzinski.